There is a small community in Livingston County, Michigan called Hell, Michigan. It's a nice little Brigadoon community nestled in the rolling hills of southeastern Michigan. The whole community is having fun with the name. But I don't think they make handbags. The way things are going today, maybe they should. Why? Worldwide, things are not calm. We could call it a world in fluid motion, even before President Biden's having Americans and American technology leave China. China has all but collapsed as an exporter of products, including power tools. For us, the question is, where will we get our tools in the 21st century? I think we all agree this deserves a good talk about. Hello, anyone. I'm Scott Bain. They call me the old farmer. Politics has raised its ugly head in all directions. There is no doubt that Russia needs a timeout. They basically want to make their footprint reach all the mountain regions so that Russia can defend their borders. Russia in many ways has been like Poland, a doormat of various armies ransacking through the countryside. This is why Russia is so paranoid about everything. The world after the fall of the Soviet Union invited Russia into the world community. They came for a while, and then paranoia flared up with the help of Mr. Putin. I think part of the reason is that the number of replacement citizens growing up in Russia is so low. Russia will be unable to defend against invasion because there will not be enough young people to do so, and also there will not be enough young people to produce the goods needed internally and for export. In other words, Russia is dying as a country. I guess Mr. Putin thinks this is a last hurrah for Russia. As for income, Russia's oil fields are very unstable, being that they are not in solid earthen environment. It is all swampland that is frozen. Frozen swampland is called permafrost. If for any reason the pumps have to shut down, they will not be able to restart them. Is this a concern? Yes, Russia cannot store oil in a fashion that would allow the pumps to continue pumping. The little storage available when filled means that the pumps will have to shut down. The last time the pumps were shut down, it took about 50 years to get the oil flowing again. So let's see, no younger generation, so to speak, flimsy oil fields. Russia isn't in a very good position. This is why Mr. Putin is throwing a tantrum. I don't think we'll be buying any tools from Russia for some time. Maybe we should hear what American geopolitical analyst and author Peter Zeihan has to say.
The Russians are hoping to reestablish a more defensive perimeter. Most Russian territory is open, it's flat, and it's middling farmland, so you have a relatively light, well, actually not relative, you have a very light population density through even the populated parts of the country. And whenever a foe gets into the Russian heartlands, it becomes a war of movement. And since the foe had to move to get there, they tend to outperform Russian forces, which are very static and slow.
Right.
And so Russia has been invaded 50-odd times throughout its history. What the Russians are trying to do is preempt the next invasion because their demographic is in freefall, and they know that if they don't do it now, not have a chance later. So they want to forward position forces in the access points that are gateways to the Russian territories. Two of those gateways are on the other side of Ukraine. So it's not just that Russia is not going to stop until it gets all of Ukraine. Russia is not going to stop when it gets all of Ukraine, which is one of the reasons why the NATO countries are so desperate to stop it here, because there's 5 NATO countries on the next list. The story of China, the story of Korea, the story of Japan, the story of Singapore, the story of most of East Asia is globalization. When globalization allowed countries to move off the farm and into the cities, in Asia, it happened in mass. And in Asia, the density of the population pre-industrialization was the highest in the world. So in the industrialized era, we just got these mega cities that are absolutely dependent upon supply chains that stretch around the world. But that also means their demographic collapse is the fastest in the world. So Korea and China are by far the two that are furthest along. And the only way a country that has more people in their 60s and 50s and 40s than their 30s, 20s, and 10s is by exporting. So they absolutely have to remain integrated. And if something happens to that integration, they don't have an economic model. The problem that we're seeing in Japan and Korea, and to a far lesser degree Taiwan right now, is it's not just that they have more people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, it's that the bulk of them are now on the very edge of retirement. And so they're not going to be able to maintain the productive system either. This all breaks this decade. That's when all of these countries age into mass obsolescence. So we have already seen in China the fastest increases in wages over the last 22 years of any country in any era in all of history. There is no longer a manufacturing subsector in China that can't be done cheaper in North America.
The complete interview can be heard at Economy and Geopolitics. Link is provided below. Peter Zeihan's YouTube channel can also be found below. By shutting down the oil distribution to Germany by Mr. Putin, Germany is in a bad way, besides that Germany is also lacking a younger generation to take over those retiring. They have to bring back online their coal-fired electrical plants as a stopgap while they bring back the nuclear power plants. Without Russian oil, Germany cannot heat their homes this winter, let alone continue manufacturing for internal consumption or for export. Germany could become a third world country by springtime. We can't look for tools from Germany. Germany may have to go nuclear if they wish to be able to export goods or even feed her population. The question of safety is a legitimate concern to ask, and is entangled in Germany's politics. Yes, nuclear plants have the best safety record of any industry. But when things go bad, they go bad in a bad way. In the United States, we have the Anderson Act that indemnifies the power companies. They say if they can't have limited liability of the Anderson Act, then they will shut down the reactors. I say if they need the Anderson Act, we can't chance having the nuclear power plants. The question of safety needs to be better addressed, and in all countries. Possibly thorium nuclear power plants may be the answer, but only after questions have been answered. Thorium is an alternative design of a nuclear power plant and was invented back in the 1940s and is based upon using thorium. It's harder to make nuclear bombs of varying recipes with thorium. So they chose uranium power plants. Easier to make bombs that way. This is true for all current nuclear power plants. China has been doing its own huffing and puffing. I have never liked buying Chinese goods that should have been made in the United States. Our government has failed us by allowing industry to leave. Now it has to come back with a huge price tag in the billions of dollars and maybe 10 years to build. I'm not saying anything against the Chinese people. They are an honorable people, and those that I have had the pleasure to meet, I thoroughly enjoyed. These are good people in a bad situation. China has been shut down ever since the second round of COVID and has only been shipping already produced products. Even though China has been pretending to play nice with Russia, neither side trusts one another, and with the latest help from China has caused Mr. Putin to read a speech that was absolutely humiliating to him personally and to Russia. Russia has knuckled under to China, but since China is in total collapse, That is even worse than what Russia is experiencing. There will be no more exported production from China once the warehouses are empty. Also, China has an oil import issue too. The shift in attitude is not just one-sided from the West. China is close to starvation, and famine is a real concern for the Chinese people. Chairman Xi has said that he will not buy any American agricultural products except as a very last resort. Japan has learned how to survive without a younger generation to replace the workers. They are building plants in the countries where they are selling products. Toyota is a prime example of this. As for Japan itself, robotic technology called AI is helping with the services that an aging population needs. We can still get some tools from Japan proper if they can be made with robots. The Middle East countries, such as South Korea and Vietnam, have collapsing populations too. Maybe they can carry the production needs for the next few years while North America plants are being rebuilt. Let's hope so. Great Britain is economically collapsing. The pound, which is usually valued at about $2.50 in American dollars, is now on par with the US dollar. Until Great Britain stabilizes, not much should be expected from Great Britain. France is probably the best situated European country. They have oil sources that are not available to the rest of Europe through the resources of Algeria. Two countries we may not have thought of and will continue to be our trading partners is Australia and New Zealand. Especially Australia could increase tool exports of some of the name brand tools available in Australia, but only if they are made in Australia. Otherwise, they are in the same boat we are. NAFTA, that's the United States, Mexico, and Canada, will be tied together in a way that it might make sense to at least address the issue of becoming one country. Of course, that is for another time and another channel. The pros and the cons are tremendous. But NAFTA is already gearing up to bring back the industry, including heavy industry, but don't look for it to be the same. Robotics will become a major source of labor. The United States will be the high-tech manufacturing, and Mexico will plug the parts together. As Mexico advances, they will start adding the higher-tech projects to their country. When North America becomes fully industrialized, it should be possible to sell hand and power tools at par with current prices. If it doesn't, we will see many walking away from North American products. It is about time that these industries come back to North America. They should never have left in the first place. You will not hear it said, but the reason that the United States had all these plants and able to offer top quality products was for national security. The goal of the United States was to have all the industry needed to defend with another war, and to stockpile decades worth of minerals and ores if we don't have them. So when everything was shipped abroad, much of our national security went with it, and the stockpiles were used up or sold off. Now is the time for those in the workforce or starting to enter the workforce to learn advanced skills in your field. If it's manufacturing, learn AI skills so that you can be in demand when the plants open. As for the other areas, even if you have just graduated from college, learn hands-on skills in your field. It may be design, developing, which is different than design, packaging, transportation, and marketing. The way I put it to young drivers who are smiling with the biggest grin showing their driver's license, all this means is that you've learned enough to start learning to drive. You have only just begun. Didn't they do a song about that? This is true for any endeavor. Your piece of paper says that you now have the ability to learn what you really need to know. So go out and learn it. This is true for graduating from high school, college, or trade school. At 72 years old, I know much, but saying this, I have only scratched the surface of what I could or should know. Now go out and learn it. Before we go, it's important to quickly mention for all who are visiting to subscribe, ring the bell, leave a comment, and share with friends and family. Now for the most important part. Thank you to those who have subscribed. Thank you. And yes, thank you to those who are visiting. We value you too. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers so that we may receive a pittance from YouTube to cover expenses. We replaced one camera, tripod, and bought a water-cooled editor for video production, plus all the tools we review. So if you could help us reach that 1,000 subscription point, thank you. Well, this is the old farmer Scott Boehm. Be well, be safe, and be kind to someone.
Don't forget to click like and click subscribe on the Old Farmer YouTube channel. And thanks again for watching. Bye.
The VFW National Home for Children, providing families of veterans and active duty military opportunities for growth and development in a nurturing community. Please consider a donation to help their children and families. I.C. Rhodes speaking.